Welcome to Cut the COVID Crap, Part 11. Sorry my son cannot make it. He's suffering from deadly side effects of the COVID vaccination, which are not reported. That's why you don't hear of it. Today we're going to talk about how we are all being influenced. We all need to take a decision whether to get vaccinated or not. All adults and even some children. How do we make an informed decision about whether we should get vaccinated or not? Traditionally, you'd listen to a doctor. However, different doctors give different advice on this. Most people listen to mainstream media. That's perfectly fine. But the message you usually get is, vaccinations are safe. You should get vaccination for your own protection and to protect the elderly. Sounds reasonable, but if you think about it, you can easily see the following three issues. A good doctor would never say a medical intervention is safe. Any operation, any medicine, any vaccination that has at least a small chance of something going wrong. You have to assess the benefits and the risks of your particular situation. A doctor can help you give the relevant information for that. A doctor has the responsibility to advise you on taking your interests first. There's a huge difference in COVID fatality between young and old people, whereas the risk of vaccination side effects is much more evenly spread and for young males is even riskier. The benefit versus risk varies a lot. You can't generalize it. That's why Moderna is not allowed for young males in Scandinavia. Protecting the elderly may sound noble. Giving up half your salary to save starving children in Africa is noble too. But we don't want to force people to do that. Neglecting your own kid is illegal in most countries. If you neglect your own child and put down all your time and effort in helping other people, it is still considered illegal. So do realize what the mainstream media says sounds noble, but in fact, administering a vaccine to a child when it's not in his own interest is an extremist point of view. Fair enough, if you can, as an individual, think differently from what nature does, like parents willing to give their lives for children, fair enough. If you, as an included individual, think differently from what the norm in society, like not being allowed to neglect your own child, but when you say others should be thinking like you or else, that's an extremist point of view. An extremist has a different point of view to what's normal in society and thinks that he has the right to tell and force everyone else to accept his point of view or else. So let me reiterate. Some vaccination-related arguments you hear in the mainstream media are extremist statements. I would advise you to think for yourself. It is your own choice what information you expose yourself to. If you, like most people, only listen to mainstream media, you will think vaccinations are safe, and people who don't get vaccinated are stupid and or selfish. Compare it to religion. What religion do you have? Most likely the same religion as your parents, if any. So your opinion is not much based on truth, but more so on what you have been exposed to. And oh boy, people stick to what they had happened to grow up with, or are generally exposed to, not willing to budge. If you notice, the mainstream media is highly biased, and you independently go out to find other sources of information, boy oh boy, you'll find a lot of information that goes against the mainstream media, but it's just as crappy as the mainstream media. The only difference is found at the other side of the fence. In my journey to finding out more information about COVID and vaccinations, the biggest struggle was to get through the initial crap. I consider 90% of what you've come across initially as crap. Opinions not backed up by logic or data, or items completely out of context. What you should look for is discussions based on content. Technical discussions may not have the knowledge about the specific subject, but there are plenty of people that make an effort to explain technical subjects in easy to understand terms. Subsequently, if you think someone has a good point, you actively have to look for comments and counter arguments on this item. Ignore general statements like this person is a quack or racist. Do look for content-based replies. Also actively look for data that support or disprove what you believe. So, if you find inconsistencies in data, there must be a reason that you don't understand yet. Especially if you think you're pretty certain about what you think is right. Actively follow channels that are just a bit on the left of what you believe and some just a bit of the right what you believe. It is likely that you're going to change your opinion during the process. And this is the way to check and adjust. This process costs energy. It's up to you to make an effort or not. Just bear in mind, if you don't make an effort, you'll follow mainstream media and they are biased. I don't know if there's any big media outlet that is truly independent. They are left or right of the political spectrum and they don't follow the government narrative. Whoever is in power, the rest of the media is marginal and doesn't have the financial backing to cover global subjects. I was not on social media at all, and I don't plan to return to social media after this Cut the COVID Crap series is done. I refuse to make money out of this, and I don't care about online harassment at all. I think it's not wise to respond to anonymous negative energy. On one, I'll always be open to a conversation, especially if the other person doesn't agree with me. And I'd like to respectively disagree and think I always think it's better to learn something rather than preach the truth. I even disagree with myself 2 months ago on a number of things. Now during my quest to know more about COVID and vaccinations, what do I look like? Data like Euromomo.eu and worldometers.info/coronavirus. John Campbell, he makes daily videos. He very diligently goes through research. He doesn't question the need for vaccination, much so as it appeals to more mainstream viewers. Good to see what's relevant for these people. Russel Brand. He's skeptical about anyone big or powerful. Very funny and pretty fast. Brett and Heather Weinstein. Academic discussions with alternative insights. Sometimes too academic. Theorizing rather than being practical. Rebel wisdom. Alternative insights. They try to put opposing parties together. They are careful not to draw conclusions though, because they may hurt one side too much. Make sure you draw your own conclusions. Epoch TV. They have a great independent journalism, although the undertone is sometimes anti-communism or anti-CCP, which I find unnecessary. I have listened in the past to Geert Vandenbosch. Made me wiser, but it is more of the same now. For Tess Laurie and Peter Malone and Steve Kirsch, Peter McCullough, I watch sometimes still. Norman Fenton makes a good analysis, purely based on statistics. Funnily enough, Jordan Peterson, a Canadian clinical psychologist, has opened my eyes a lot on things. Not directly on COVID-19, but on the fear-mongering and the risk of COVID passports forever leading to totalitarianism of any kind. And he focuses very much on the responsibility of the individual rather than the victim of culture that seems to be promoted these days. Lastly, I find it extremely important to connect with friends left and right of my view that do research too. Make sure to talk to each other in a respectful way. This is the journey for both of you to learn. You'll learn by doing your own research and entering a dialogue with someone who doesn't agree with you initially. One of you is going to learn something most likely. I'd like you to do a test yourself, independently of the whole COVID story. Go ahead and watch the documentary Vaxxed 2. Then decide for yourself what your opinion is on the HPV vaccinations, or the one called Gardasil, which is discussed in the documentary. After you've made up your mind, go do a simple Google on search on those vaccinations. You'll see that they are legal and recommended. You'll see that the vaccination uptake is around 80%, depending on the country you're looking at. Now, I don't have any idea about this vaccination. I had not heard it at all until very recently. I haven't studied it properly. But do you realize that depending on what you look at, you change your opinion on whether it's safe enough? If you've never heard it, and you just see the Vaxxed 2 documentary, you may think, no way, I'll have my kid take it. If you just go by what's recommended, or the 80% uptake percentage, you may think back to, let's go for it. Everybody seems to do it, and they say it's safe. What is the truth? I really don't know. These cases in Vaxxed 2 seem real and pretty bad. Are they just collateral damage? Are they just few cases that there are many more cases of cervical cancer that would have been prevented? And most importantly, when studying the research, is it independent research, or is it research from the very same pharmaceutical companies that produce the vaccine? In other words, is this the tobacco industry all over again? The main thing in that we need to do is take the adverse reactions seriously. Take the case of Debbie the Garay. Who? Debbie the Garay. She was a volunteer of the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccination trial, and soon after her second dose got extreme pains and is still in a wheelchair, brushed off as an abdominal pains by Pfizer. That's only one in a study of 40,000. Are there more cases like that? We may only find that out in 50 years. Is the exact cause known? Don't know. Maybe it's a risk that's worth taking. Maybe not. But my point is, can you judge based on what you hear? Based on what you hear when you don't make an effort? Go to YouTube and do research on Debbie de Garay. I don't know what you get, but my first hit is a dance song for children, and my second hit is a clip on how Ron Johnson is wrong with his anti-vaccination mandate statements. Luckily, if you just Google it, you'll find the story of Debbie de Garay. My point is, follow the mainstream and your opinion will be biased too. That's your choice. But then going around and proclaiming that the vaccination is safe is wrong. Proclaiming that it's unsafe based on limited information is wrong too, of course. I want to leave it at that for this video. Do what you need to do for your own decision making before trying to convince others or shame others. Do your research. If you don't, please be respectful for others. If you like this video, don't give me money. I don't need your money. Spend your money by buying a drink for someone who disagrees with you. Show compassion. Talk about what you believe and what you think you should do about this. And if you don't like this, call me an anti-vaxxer, a philatelist, a smoker, what else? Ah yes, a seamstress. And here's my disclaimer. I'm all for the availability of vaccination, but it's a personal choice whether the benefits outweigh the risks for you, and that's your choice. I'm not going to give you advice on that. See you next time!